Thinking Cap Publishing presents A Creeping Suspicion, a short story written and read to you by Dave Cap. Something sure does smell good. I walked behind my wife, Kristen, and kissed her on the neck as the smell of fat and nitrates enticingly danced into my nostrils. Kristen took a sip of coffee and smiled. She looked the exact same as when we lived together in college, 13 years ago. Maybe it was the oversized sweater she wore, or maybe it was because her blonde hair still shimmered like a morning sun. But ever since my first dive into her gray-blue eyes, she's been my world. Thought you might like a nice breakfast this morning. You thought correct. I began to pile a plate with enough bacon to build my own Frankenstein pig. Toast? Kristen asked, as she ran her fingers through my thick brown forest of curls. Not even waiting for an answer, she popped 2 slices of rye bread into the toaster. Flipping 2 over medium eggs onto my plate, and I chuckled. What? Her face flushed like a ripening tomato. Nothing. I began to chew on a strip of bacon. Why do I feel like I'm being courted? Maybe because you are? Well, you're doing a great job. Kristen sat down in front of me and smiled. This was always her thing. Whenever my lovely wife wanted to tell me something I may not like, I'd always be softened up with a meal. Judging by the amount of bacon she had fried up, it was easy to see that she was going to drop a bomb. The wooden chair groaned when I sat down at the kitchen table. I didn't even have a chance to pepper my egg whites before my wife slid into the seat in front of me. So, she started as she handed me a mug of coffee. 2 things. 2? You better whip up some pancakes then. And get the good syrup, not that high fructose corn garbage, I joked. I'm going to accept the offer, Kristen squeaked out before she hid behind her coffee mug. Oh. And she stammered as if she didn't want to finish the sentence. And what? I'm starting tomorrow. I opened my mouth to speak, but no words came out. It felt as though my tongue had doubled in size. Oh, could I think, though? Closing my eyes tight, a young man in a slim-fitting navy suit stood before me. He was muscular, with dark eyes, chestnut brown hair, and a jawline that could sharpen a razor. Hello, sir. He stuck out a hand. Then I opened my eyes and remembered that young man didn't exist anymore. That young man had died long ago. That young man had promised his wife the world, but only delivered a gas station convenience store snow globe. That's so exciting, I was finally able to say. Kristen gave me a sort of half-smile. Well, don't get too excited. Wouldn't want to have the neighbors call the police. We have no neighbors, I grumbled as I prodded the yolk of an egg with my fork. A pool of yellow filled up the plate, soaking the rest of my breakfast. I know. It was a joke. I know what it was! At first, Kristen rolled her eyes, but then they narrowed upon me. Well, don't you think you could be... She stood. Oh, I don't know. Happy for me? I am. I am happy for you. And proud of you, Chris. I'm sorry. It's just been frustrating for me. Good to know that at least one of us is doing well, right? I tried my hardest to sound enthused. Laugh lines creased on Kristen's face. Oh my God, thank you, Hunter Benson. I will be making more than I did at my old job. Like, a lot more. She paused. Then next go around, you'll pass the bar, and by that time, I'll have new connections here. Absolutely. I smiled. It was then I finally realized why my wife looked the same as she did in college. She didn't actually look the same. Nope, that wasn't it. It was because she still saw me as a 22-year-old boy who still had the world by the balls. You know, you're right, Chris. We'll be the super couple of law. They'll make a reality show about us. That's what I'm saying, babe. She poured herself another cup of coffee. Kinda wanna celebrate. I'm gonna pour some Irish cream in here. I know what you're asking yourself. How did this asshole wind up with her? If you were to look up the definition of perfect partner in the dictionary, you'd see a picture of my wife. Anyone would do anything to be with her. And trust me, after being together almost 15 years, I've seen a whole lot of anything. After we both graduated law school, Kristen and I moved to the big city. My beautiful wife had a job as a junior attorney all lined up for herself in Manhattan. I, on the other hand, couldn't even pass the bar exam. Finally, I conceded to the fact that city life wasn't for me. It was for Kristen, though. She loved the city that never slept. She's one of those girls that enjoy shopping on Christmas Eve, and because of me, my saintable wife left her city and followed me into the dark. We moved to Lake George, where my family owned a rundown vacation home. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. This once rich white kid who spent his entire life in suburbia has now fled to the mountains because he couldn't handle the idea of making his mother and father's school debt be worth it. Oh, by the way, my parents paid for my undergrad and law degrees. Seriously, they would have been better off flushing their money down the toilet. Maybe Pennywise could have become a doctor. Then we can, fix this place up. It'll be a great home to raise a family. She placed her empty mug down and ran her fingers over my chest. Hey, you know what? I stood abruptly. While you're gone during the day, I can start my own renovations. It's about time I open the old shed up again. Kristen led me into the living room and sprawled onto the couch. Oh yes, that is definitely what you should open. I awoke before Kristen, who didn't seem to notice the sun's orange beam blaring through the living room window. Finding my shorts, I stretched and made for the back door. The tiny hill that led to the shed was filled with roots, all of which had the same intention of tripping anyone who stepped over them. Luckily, the key to this box of rotten termite scraps was still under the same rock that it had been since the dawn of time. Or at least since my family had come here for a summer vacation. When I got the shed open, a shotgun immediately fell out and onto the ground in front of me. I opened the chamber and saw one bullet. The next thing I noticed was an old rowboat. Pulling it out into the open air, I could almost hear laughter, as if a lifetime of happy memories were preserved in the boat's wood. After I found an old fishing rod and dug out enough earthworms to fill half a coffee tin, I brought the boat into the lake. I figured I could come back with a couple fish to fry up and have another round in the ring with Kristen afterwards. I was on the water for 5 hours. The sky had turned from a hazy orange to a deep bruised purple, and I didn't catch a single fish. Rocking back and forth on the water didn't come close to creating a sense of comfort. No, it boiled a pot of rage. Past the bar? Kristen had no idea that ship had sailed away, like my family after giving me the parting gift of this lake house. Of course I couldn't pass the bar. It was something that I had to do on my own. Mommy and Daddy couldn't get me out of this one. What an utter failure I had become. This is the man that the perfect partner is stuck with. Maybe she isn't so perfect after all. I screamed until my throat felt like it was wrapped in sandpaper. And after it grew hoarse, I screamed some more. You would think that watching the sunset would have helped me cool down? I hate sunsets. I know, what kind of crazy nutjob says he hates sunsets? Well, most, a sunset is one of nature's greatest beauties. To me, it meant another wasted day, and as I thought about that day, I realized that sunrise would only bring another day to waste. 3 long months passed. That's 90 days. So, to me, that's 90 wasted days. It didn't even seem to faze me anymore. If Kristen wasn't working late for her boss, Ronald Tercy, she was going in early. Morning quickies were replaced with pattered pecks. Conversation became passing grunts fit for a subway terminal. And meals were replaced with mystery meat, and soggy carrots. Every day, I would tell Kristen that I was studying, or maybe that I was going to fix that leaky faucet, but it was never true. I'd take the test in the winter, fail, and be at the exact same spot I was now. Maybe you could tell me what exactly is the point of it all. My main comfort now was the rowboat. Every day I would go out onto the water, lay down with my hat over my face, and sleep the day away. Of course I tried to be productive, but it was pointless. I had never lived for myself. I went to college for my parents, law school for Kristen, and now I had no idea what I wanted. Kristen was the only beacon of hope for me in the endlessly twisting path that was my life. And, well, with her gone for sometimes 3/4 of any given day, I was lost. One night, a cricket song woke me from my stupor. I opened my eyes to a shimmering night. The moon seemed to be smiling down on me, as it wrapped the world in a blanket of silver starlight. My watch read 11:47, and I immediately sat up. Rowing with all my might, I made it back to shore, eager to spend a little time with Kristen. She wasn't in the living room or the kitchen. Then I remembered the time and realized she must have gone to bed. Maybe I could wake her up for a few quick minutes of fun before I fell into a sleepless dream again. Our bed was empty. A whirl of thoughts spun around my head before screaming in my face. Did she get in an accident? I ran down the steps to check the driveway, and it too was empty. Oh no, my voice cracked. Oh no, I repeated. Trying to compose myself, I took a deep breath. Let's not jump to conclusions, Hunt, I said. I went into the kitchen and poured myself a cold glass of water. I stumbled into the living room and fell onto the couch, spilling water all over my chest. Another deep breath, and I noticed a blinking red light on our answering machine. I was afraid to press play. Can you believe that? My wife, the love of my life, could have been hurt or worse, and I was afraid to find out, afraid to face any sort of reality. Finally, I mustered up the courage and pressed play. There was a loud scream that made the speaker crackle. It sounded twisted. It sounded possessed. It sounded drunk? The scream turned into a giddy woo, and I began to laugh. Hunt, I'm sorry, but Kristen's voice was my favorite song, one that I would love to leave on repeat until the end of time. Get off! Give me that back, she said to someone. A gruff mumble answered. Hunt, I'm sorry, but the dinner ran late. Mr. Tercy, the same voice mumbled again. I mean, Ron took the team out for drinks afterwards. I'll be home close to midnight, Kristen slurred. I love you. Close to midnight, I muttered. Well, that should be now. In case you haven't noticed, I've started to talk to myself quite a lot over the last 3 months. You try being by yourself all day and tell me you don't need someone to talk to. Then, I heard my voice. At least I thought it was my voice. I didn't feel myself speak the words, but it sounded like me. Well, it sounded like me if I had just finished chain-smoking a pack of cigarettes. Home late again. Yeah, she's doing what she has to, I answered. She goes in early and comes home late, and even works weekends. Right, she's making our dream a reality. Oh, your dream? My dream. My dream is for my wife to be happy. Your wife who spends no time with you anymore. Even in the city, she worked all day and night. She worked to stay away from you. That's not true, I laughed nervously. You know what she's doing. What she's always done. No. There's no way she would betray me. She loves me. Odd way to show love, wouldn't you say? She created a dream for you and has ignored you ever since. So she's Probably right now. You heard that voice. A man's voice. I rewound the answering machine. Hunt, I'm sorry. I pressed the rewind, then the play button. Hunt, I'm sorry. The spinning sound of the tape rewinding made my flesh crawl, made my jaw tighten so tight that I thought my teeth would crack out of my gums. But I still kept pressing rewind and play. Rewind and play. Rewind and fucking play. Hunt, I'm sorry. Hunt, I'm sorry. Hunt, I'm sorry. You're right. I rasped. You've always known. Of course she would want another. Easy choice, right? Rich, powerful, driven. Versus us. Headlights flashed in the driveway at 1:15. I opened the door to greet my wife with a mask of a smile. Waving to the driver, Mr. Tercy, I opened the passenger door to be slapped in the face with the smell of bourbon. "Hunt!" Kristen cried as she wrapped her arms around my neck. She, left her car at the Fox and the Hound. A deep, baritone voice boomed from the driver's side. "Thank you for taking her home, Ron." Ronald Tercy seemed thrown off by my knowledge of his name. He had held out a hand to shake, but didn't say a word. I ignored his gesture and kissed my wife. "So, I have a surprise," Kristen giggled. "What's that?" "My sister is coming over tomorrow." "Oh, well, I'll have to clean up the guest room then." I helped Kristen get out of the car. Ronald Tercy snorted. "She found a payphone at the bar, and I'm quite impressed at the amount of phone numbers she has memorized." I watched my wife as she smiled at the man in the sleazy three-piece suit and brushed past me to go inside. "As long as she was impressive," I said to my wife's boss and lover. "Tell you what, Ron, how about you stay the night? It's not safe to drive on the roads this late." "Yeah, my brother is a sergeant in Schenectady, and I'll be just fine." "You can still crash. Your brother's name wouldn't help you there," I whispered. He thought for a moment, then threw his car into park. "You know, you're right. Thanks for the concern, Hunter." Together we walked inside without saying a word. Kristen was in the kitchen sipping on a bottle of water. "Oh," she coughed. "Ron's gonna stay the night." That's great. And I can drive you to get your car in the morning." Tall and dark with broad shoulders, Ronald stuck his chest out proudly, as if he had come up with the idea on his own. Kristen nodded. "Sure. Chris, I'm going to show your boss a boat." I didn't wait for my wife to respond. "Hey, pass us a few cold ones. You up for a nightcap?" "You know it," my wife's boss answered, taking a bottle of beer from her. Walking out into the darkness, I beckoned Ron to pass in front of me. "After you, good sir." Of course the asshole didn't object. When we passed the shed, I stopped. "Oh, keep going. I'll be right there." I bent down to fiddle with my shoelaces. Slowly, I reached for the shotgun. Grabbing it by the barrel, I stood and aimed. Trust me, I know it's cowardly to shoot a man in the back, but so is stealing a man's wife. It'll be too loud. It doesn't matter. No one will hear. Kristen won't hear a gunshot. "What was that?" A voice came from the bottom of the hill. Nothing." I tossed the shotgun down to the ground and saw a stone. The same stone that I lifted to find the key to the shed. "Boy, this is paradise," Ronald Tercy said as he took a sip of beer. As the rowboat began to rock back and forth, he stretched his arms up to the air and placed them behind his head. "Quite the life you got here, Hunt." "I'm sure you got it good too," I mumbled. "Yeah, but nothing beats this. Tiny house on the lake and a lovely wife is the recipe for happiness." I furrowed my brow. "You married?" "Divorced." He took another sip of beer and fixed his sight upon the moon. I fiddled with the stone in my pocket and found a pointed end. Pressing my pointer finger into it, I felt a slight sting of pain. What are you waiting for? Come again? When Ronald Tersey sat up, I smashed him in the face with the rock, shattering his mouth into a cave of bloody splinters. For a moment, he tried to lift his hands to fight back, but I swung once again, this time landing my blow in his temple. He fell back, and I leapt on top of him. I punched and stabbed and punched and stabbed and punched and stabbed until there was nothing left of the man's head except bits of skull, brains soaked in a pool of blood. I had no idea what to do with the body. Should I bury him? Burial would be the more respectful way to dispose of him. You don't want that. I nodded. Still leaking from the bloody ruin of his face, I tossed the man's lifeless body into the shed, locked it up, and threw the key into the lake. The trail of blood glittered in the silvery moonlight, making everything seem magical. Everything just felt so right. Painted in blood, I crept up the stairs to my bedroom. Kristen was asleep and was wearing the most beautiful smile. That's a smile that knows a secret. I know. I grabbed my pillow and pressed it over her face. This time, I was in control of her life. If I wanted to, I could have lifted the pillow and allow her to taste the sweet nectar of air. But we all know that wasn't happening. A knock on my front door woke me. I looked to my right to see Kristen. Her skin was the color of milk, her mouth and eyes open, like she had been petrified. I rose and stumbled into the bathroom to splash water on my face. The man in the mirror seemed to glow. This was what a proud man looked like. This was what a successful man looked like. Was I afraid of who was at the door? Was I scared of getting caught? Absolutely not. Jesus! Kristen's sister, Wendy, cried when I opened the door. Oh, hey, Wen. Come on in. The sky behind her was just beginning to transform into a swirl of yellow, orange, and red. Wendy stood frozen on the threshold. What are you... Is that blood? I looked down and noticed that my body was covered in crusty brown patches of victim number 1's blood. There was probably some brains mixed in there too. Yup, I answered. Went hunting. Let's just say I shouldn't quit my day job and become a butcher. I'll say. Try a supermarket next time, Rambo. Wendy smirked. Here. She handed me a stack of mail that had been ignored for well over a month. Kristen here? I didn't see her car. No. She'll be back soon. Come on in. Let's get you a drink. Wendy slipped past me and into the kitchen. I thumbed through credit card offers and fast food menus until I came upon an envelope that was addressed to Kristen Benson from Ronald Tersey. Ripping it open, 2 tickets fell onto the floor. I tore the rest of the envelope apart and found a note. Kristen, I wanted to give you and your husband a gift to show my appreciation. You always talk about how life was in the big city. So I figured you two could take a few days to soak in the lights of that city that never sleeps. Enclosed are 2 tickets to The Lion King. Please enjoy and make sure you come to me for a credit card. I do not want you or Hunter spending a dime in the Big Apple. My chest tightened as I picked up the 2 Broadway tickets. See, here's where I should have realized the monster I had become. It would have been appropriate for me to drop to my knees and sob at the mistake I had made. Who knows? Maybe even go outside and wrap my lips around the barrel of Daddy's shotgun. Hey, Wen? I said, stepping into the kitchen. Wendy took a sip of beer. Hey, Hunt? Let's go out back. The sun is about to set.